So with that, I am going to introduce Stephanie Ramirez. She is a speech language pathologist, therapist at the hospital. And she works with the Alzheimer's Association. And so she has just a world and wealth of knowledge that she is going to share with us today. Stephanie?
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. As Shanna said, I am a speech language pathologist. I also volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association as a community educator. And I recently was certified as a dementia care specialist, so I'm pretty excited about that. Today, we are going to be talking about just some ideas and tips for creating a dementia-friendly home. We're going to talk about why that's important and hopefully get all of your questions answered. So just to begin, I know I've kind of given you my professional connection to Alzheimer's and dementia, but I also have a personal connection as well that I like to share. This is a picture of my paternal grandparents, and I'm there in the middle. It's not a recent picture, obviously, but I also have had the experience of seeing both of them, really from diagnosis to their passing, kind of the journey of Alzheimer's disease. And so I also have a very personal connection and a passion about this, spreading awareness and promoting understanding. I also, have just some personal experience that I can share with you of maybe some things that helped us as a family and that hopefully can help your family as well. So for today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about Alzheimer's and dementia, give you a little bit of a background. I was telling Shanna I was updating my facts and figures here at the 11th hour just to make sure they were very current. We're going to talk about safety concerns, and then we're going to really dive into some tips and things that you can do room by room to make your home dementia friendly. And then, of course, we will have time for questions and review at the end if anyone has anything that they need answered. So just an overview, dementia is the general term for loss of memory, language, problem solving, and other thinking abilities that are severe enough to interfere with your daily life. So dementia is the umbrella term. Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of dementia. It actually accounts for about 50 to 75% of all of the dementia disease diagnoses. So you might use them interchangeably, but just know that they are different. So dementia is the umbrella term, and then Alzheimer's disease is a type of dementia. Worldwide, about 50 million people right now have dementia. An estimated 5.8 million Americans age 65 and older were living with the disease in 2020. Alzheimer's in particular is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. And for one person, they estimate a lifetime care cost of over $350,000. In 2019, Medicare and Medicaid paid over $195 billion. And by 2050, over 13.8 million people in the United States are projected to have the disease. So it is definitely growing. Our population is getting older, we're living longer, and the number one risk factor for Alzheimer's is age. So with both of those things happening, we're definitely going to be seeing an increase. And why is it important to kind of understand dementia and Alzheimer's, especially, as it relates to people in the home? So the thing that we all need to keep in mind is that dementia doesn't just alter our memory. I think that's the number one thing, people associate with dementia, but it also alters other things. So, other cognitive abilities, depth perception, balance, coordination, difficulty understanding instructions, interpreting the world around you, making sound choices. People with dementia take more time to adjust to changes. So all of these kind of reasons are why it's very important to think about, even if your loved one is still managing well, preparing the house for the future, because all of these things can be altered as the disease progresses. So as of today, the CDC reports that people with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias are usually cared for by family members or friends. So rather than, professional caregivers, we're talking about, relatives. And 80% of people with Alzheimer's disease are receiving care in their home. So a higher number, honestly, than I was expecting to see. But it is the majority of people. The CDC estimates that more than 16 million Americans provide more than 17 billion hours of unpaid care for family members and friends with Alzheimer's disease. And then I thought this was quite interesting. So when we're thinking about caregiving, approximately 2/3 of dementia caregivers are women. 1 in 3 caregivers is over the age of 65 themselves. And approximately 1/4 of dementia caregivers are what they call sandwich generation caregivers, meaning they care not only for an aging parent, but also for children under the age of 18. So definitely an increase in responsibility there. So when we're thinking about all of this in-home caregiving, obviously, it is accompanied with a lot of responsibility, but there's a lot of payoff as well. There are many benefits of what we call aging in place. So staying in that home familiar environment. So keeping the person in the familiar environment is oftentimes the best choice. As we talked about, people with Alzheimer's and dementia don't adjust to change well. So keeping them in their familiar environment is going to just make them more comfortable. It reduces emotional turmoil. So, moving to a long-term care facility, if it is abrupt or unplanned, can often be quite traumatic. It allows for family to notice changes more easily because you're with them every day. So if they start to have increased confusion or just not acting like themselves, you can get them into the doctor. You're not dealing with a multitude of nurses or CNAs that are caring for the individual. Oftentimes, it helps the person maintain their independence longer because they are in a familiar environment. They know where things are kept. They have their routine. And so it does allow them to be independent with those daily tasks. You're able to provide customized care because as a family member, you know them the best. So it is something that a lot of people strive to do. And then it can also help trigger memory recall because the person is at home surrounded by the things that they are familiar with, pictures of loved ones, and seeing their loved ones every day. They can kind of have those reminiscent opportunities there. So lots of benefits of aging in place and staying in the home. But there are also safety concerns that need to be taken into consideration. So we're going to talk a little bit about those and maybe help you plan to make this aging in place the most successful that it can be. So as you are kind of planning to take in a loved one or, to have them moving in with you, there are some questions that I think you should ask yourself. And I've got them grouped by 3 kind of categories. So number 1, behavior. Do they get more confused in the evening? Sometimes we call that sundowning. Do they wander or get up at night? Abilities. So can they safely use the stairs? Are they still driving? Are they still managing their own medications or finances? Are they managing activities of daily living? So things like bathing, dressing, laundry. And then thinking about health as well. So how's their hearing? How's their vision? Have they fallen before? How do their medications affect their functioning? And maybe what other conditions are present? Because typically when we're thinking about an older individual and dementia, there are other underlying conditions as well. So those might involve just as much, if not more, care than the dementia. So some things to ask yourself. And I like to bring this up because I think when we're thinking about quote unquote problem behaviors or difficulties with dementia, we really need to ask ourselves, is it really a problem, and who is it a problem for? So I've just got a few examples that I've heard before in my experience, and I would like to respond to those. So number 1, my husband constantly checks locks and asks if someone locks the doors. So, you know, if your husband has always been the one to make sure the house is locked up at night, you know, he's just continuing his ritual, and he probably doesn't remember that he already checked the locks today. Doing this probably makes him feel like he's protecting his family and gives him a sense of security. And allowing him to do that might help prevent other anxieties. So while it might be frustrating for the family, it could actually be very helpful for the individual. The second one, my wife insists on wearing the same clothes day after day. So, you know, some things to think about. Obviously, personal hygiene and grooming is very important. But maybe, you know, wash it at night when she's in her pajamas and then have it laying out the next morning. If it's not appropriate for the weather, if it's not going to be safe, try putting a different outfit out on the bed. Typically, the person is just going to put on whatever they see first. And, you know, you can also make the suggestion, you know, let's leave our coats on because it's a really chilly day out. And then you leave your coat on too, so that they have that and are cued to do the same. My mom is always rummaging through the drawers and the cabinets. So, you know, a lot of times rummaging through things gives the person a sense of purpose, or it fulfills that need to feel secure about their possessions. So rummaging can actually be a positive thing. A lot of times we think about maybe setting aside a few drawers or a box on top of a dresser with some of the person's favorite things that they can just rummage around in. And that will distract them, keep them away from maybe less safe or less appropriate areas. Keeping things like driver's licenses, social security cards, car titles, you know, car keys, dangerous things locked away in another location would be something to definitely consider. And then the other two, you know, dad says we never take him anywhere, but we take him somewhere every day. You know, he doesn't want to hurt your feelings. He just honestly can't remember. So in that moment, you might make a smooth transition and say, well, how about we go to the park right now? Or, you know, how about we go get a cup of coffee? So instead of laying blame or, you know, getting defensive, you know, you just turn it into a positive. And then finally, my husband watches TV shows he used to think were really stupid. It is so annoying. And, you know, it's one of those things that if he's really engaged with the show, you know, as a caregiver, you might use it as a chance to have some time for yourself around the house. And if he finds the show entertaining, it probably brightens his mood. So just some things to think about when you are kind of identifying those concerns or those problems. Really think about, what is the problem? Is it a problem, and who is it a problem for? So when we're thinking about our home environment, I want to really dive in kind of room by room to give you some good ideas for what you can do to help maximize safety, because I think that's what it really comes down to, is what is going to be safe, what's going to help the person be as independent as possible. I got this from a website called enablingenvironments.com. I thought that it was a great kind of outline. So just 10 steps for safety and quality of life. Those are definitely our two goals. So number 1, reducing risks. Number 2, providing a human scale. 3, allow people to see and be seen. 4, reduce unhelpful stimulation. 5, optimize helpful stimulation. 6, support movement and engagement. 7, creating a familiar space. 8, providing opportunities to be alone or opportunities to be with others. 9, providing links to the community. And 10, responding to a vision for a way of life. So if we can keep these in mind as we go through the home, I think we'll definitely create a really nice environment and a dementia-friendly space. So starting out in the bathroom, definitely a good idea to install a shower chair and some grab bars. A handheld shower head might also be useful. Obviously in the bathroom, you're dealing with a lot of slippery surfaces. So things like non-skid strips or a mat definitely can be helpful. A faucet cover can be really helpful. If there is a fall in the bathtub, it can actually help prevent a lot of injury. Locking up potentially hazardous products or electrical appliances. Reducing the water temperature. So they recommend about 120 degrees Fahrenheit. And then again, removing the door locks just in case there is an emergency, somebody could get in very quickly. Thinking about locking up the hazardous products, you know, when my grandparents were still living in the home, we used a lot of the child-proof locks, which worked very well, and they're obviously very easy to come by. They're also child restraint caps for medication containers. Those are very helpful as well. And so that can be good. If the person is kind of coming into your home and they're not familiar with the layout, you might consider even putting a picture of a toilet on the door so they know where the restroom is. So just to kind of look at maybe an example of a dementia-friendly bathroom here, you see going from the left, there is a high contrast color on the door handle and the toilet. That again will make it very easily seen. As we talked about earlier, people's vision, depth perception can often be changed with dementia, so that can help. The floor is not shiny, there's no glare. You have grab bars in the shower and there's a shower seat there. It even looks like they have some little call buttons there. If you don't have one of those, you know, a bell is just as effective. You don't have to be super high tech with it. There's also, you know, nice fuzzy robes and towels within eye gaze. So definitely encourages the use of them. Again, maximizing independence, having those necessities organized and easy to see. It will prevent that rummaging and then also help them be independent. Something interesting, you might notice there is a cover that can be pulled down over the mirror. A lot of times people with dementia, especially in the later stages, might not recognize themselves in the mirror, and it can be quite upsetting and confusing. So sometimes covering mirrors or windows that might have a glare or reflection can be helpful for this population. Alrighty, so moving to the kitchen. So obviously there are a lot of potentially dangerous appliances. You can also purchase appliances that have shut-off features. Definitely want to have a fire extinguisher easily accessible, especially if that person is still cooking. Moving the necessary items within reach so they're not having to go up high or down low, because that would obviously increase the risk for a fall. Make it a routine practice to check expiration dates on perishable items, especially those in the refrigerator. The person themselves might not remember to do that, and so definitely want to prevent some potential food poisoning. Locking up breakable or potentially dangerous supplies, getting rid of kitchen rugs, keeping counters clean, cords tucked away, just reducing clutter. Some other things that we did with my grandparents, we had safety knobs on the stove. And then eventually we did unplug the stove. They still could use the microwave, but the stove, they left it on a few times. We disconnected the garbage disposal, just again to be on the safe side. Child-proof latches on the cabinets and drawers, just to limit access to things like, cleaning products, alcohol, matches, knives, scissors. And we invested in some non-breakable dishes, just so that, even if they dropped a plate or something, that it wouldn't shatter. So here is an example of a dementia-friendly kitchen. So some things that you might notice, there are lots of cabinets that are glass or, see-through. So again, there's no rummaging around. Everything is visible and you can find it easily. There's a very limited clutter on the cabinets. They do have some fruit laying out there in a bowl. That can be helpful just to, encourage the person to enjoy a healthy snack. If they see the fruit, they might, just automatically take a piece. You might notice there's nothing on the floor. A lot of the drawers are labeled, which is helpful. There are some reminders on the refrigerator. So that's a really good place where you can put a big calendar or just a simple whiteboard like they have here, to have some daily events and reminders. So a very dementia-friendly kitchen. Alrighty, so moving to the bedroom. So a couple of options. A monitoring device can be very helpful for peace of mind. It can help, you hear the person if they get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom and they might need help. It definitely cuts down on falls, and it might be very handy, especially with advanced dementia. Removing the space heaters, rugs, electric blankets, again, just things that are potential fall risks. And good lighting is also very important. You can use a night light in the bedroom, in the bathroom to help prevent tripping if they do get up at night. And, to prevent that, try before going to bed to make sure that all the needs are met. So hunger, thirst, going to the bathroom, if they're in pain, they get a pain pill, so that they, can rest a little bit easier. Open wardrobe, labeling drawers, again, kind of like the kitchen, having everything easily seen, non-skid flooring. Some other things that I have written down here, because again, we have noticed that people with dementia have some problems seeing dimensions. It's a good idea to have the furniture be contrasting color to the wall. That way they can tell where everything is, and prevent them from walking into things and getting hurt. So, that's one of the things that that you might think about. Oftentimes people can remember things that happened a long time ago. So sticking to more traditional designs, traditional furnishings rather than something super modern would probably be more comfortable for that person as well. So here is a dementia-friendly bedroom. So we have high contrast between the flooring and the furniture. The doors and the window all have, you know, that high contrast. There's a night light there. Lots of nice family photos for reminiscing. And you can see lots of lighting up on the ceiling as well. The window and the mirror have shades, so that can eliminate reflections, reduce the shadows. And then moving over to the wardrobe there, you'll see that there are labels. You know, there are also, you know, outfits. You know, you might hang an entire outfit together so that they don't have to find the different pieces. And removing off-season clothing, so that's not even an option to choose, to make sure that they're wearing seasonal appropriate clothes. You might also think about laying the clothes out in the order that they are to be put on. So again, it just helps with kind of sequencing that task. And then finally, there's a little orientation board over on the far wall that has the time and, you know, just little notes to help, especially, you know, when they're waking up first thing in the morning and kind of encouraging them to orient themselves to the day and just prevent confusion. If there's, you know, a doctor's appointment or something on the agenda, you might write that down so they can, you know, kind of mentally be prepared for that. And it's not something that kind of catches them off guard. All right, so next we are moving to the living room. So avoiding clutter, I think, you know, sometimes that space can be kind of a catch-all. Again, lighting is very important, not just for fall risk, but also, you know, orientation and that sundowning. If you can use the daylight as much as possible, you know, keeping the curtains open, it'll help prevent them from getting the days and nights mixed up. Obviously, taking caution when using things like fireplaces, keeping upholstery and floor patterns simple with minimal patterns. Again, with that depth perception, some patients that I've had were reluctant to step on certain patterns because they thought it was water. So just very, you know, simple and again, high contrast color so that they can see it well. You can use, again, a small bulletin board for the routine, to-do lists. When you're thinking about seating, make sure it's comfortable, but an appropriate height. So, you know, easily getting in and out of it. You know, a lot of the furniture now, it seems like it's a little bit more low to the ground, so difficult to get out of it. With my grandfather, we got him one of those adjustable seats that it was like a recliner, but then if you push the button, it actually rocked you forward, so it could help you kind of get up out of the chair as well when you were ready for that. So definitely a good investment there. Placing the TV remotes in visible reach, keeping them in the same place. That's obviously easier said than done. I think my grandparents' remote found its way into the refrigerator at one point. But you know, if you even just want to keep it on the channel that they really like and then maybe tuck the remote away, sometimes remotes, especially for TVs now, can be quite complicated. What I've done with some of my patients is we'll cover all of the non-essential buttons with like duct tape. So the only buttons they see are the ones that are, you know, volume and channel and power. And that way they can work the remote without seeing just like a giant, you know, plethora of buttons to push, and then they push the wrong button and get frustrated. When you think about kind of decorating, think about lots of family photos, holidays, things that are going to trigger those positive memories. We don't want to have a lot of clutter again, but a few pictures can really brighten up the space. So looking at our dementia-friendly living room, you can see there's no cords or clutter on the floor. Everything's nicely tucked away. The floor is a very, neutral color, no pattern to it. If you look all the way over at the right upper corner, you'll see there's a little alarm at the top of the door. So that can alert you if they leave the house or trying to go outside. You can actually just install a deadbolt up at the top to help with that as well if you don't, want to go the tech route. But it can just help again if maybe they are trying to leave the house to go to a job that they've had, for the last 60 years. And they don't remember that they've retired. It can really help with that and just give you some peace of mind there. On the table there, you'll see some jigsaw puzzles. So it's always, nice to have some favorite activities that they can, see and kind of engage with. Same thing with like the family photos there. They can, look at those and enjoy them. And the other thing to think about is eliminating unnecessary stimuli or sounds, because a lot of times with our tech world, we have lots of beeping and the doorbell makes a weird noise. It doesn't sound like a traditional doorbell, or the phone beeps. So you might think about just turning off some of those things. The Alzheimer's Association recommends lowering the volume of your home phone to prevent distraction and confusion. And you might set the answering machine or voicemail to turn on after the lowest number of rings. So the person doesn't have to sit there and listen to the phone ring all day. It'll just pick up to voicemail, and then they can worry about it later. The person with dementia is probably not going to be able to take a message anyway. And they could actually become the victim of some, telephone exploitation. So it's probably best to kind of eliminate that as a possibility. Up on the ceiling there, you'll see a smoke detector. So obviously, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide detectors are really important, checking those regularly to make sure that they're working. If the person has a hearing problem, you might think about getting a smoke alarm or even a tornado alert that has a flashing light or a vibrating pad to help alert them in case of an emergency, because you definitely want to make sure that they can get out of the house safely if that is a factor here. All right, so just a couple of notes on some other rooms you might be thinking about. The laundry room, again, similar to the kitchen, you're going to want to lock up potentially hazardous products, and in some cases prevent access to the washer and dryer. You can close and latch the drawers or the doors of the washer and dryer. And they have the childproof latches as well that you can use. And then with the garage, especially, with maybe gentlemen who enjoy tinkering, you definitely want to lock up potentially dangerous items, locking all the vehicles, and definitely making sure that the keys are not accessible. If the person, has advanced dementia, you might just consider covering or removing the vehicles that aren't frequently used. So, kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then obviously, the last note I have is just removing all guns or weapons from the home, just to make sure that that's safe as well. So here's just a laundry room. Pretty standard, but again, you'll see some labeling there. You'll see some things that are within eye gaze. Again, I think that everyone needs to have a sense of purpose. So if they can do their own laundry, they should do their own laundry. If they can't, then maybe they can help with folding or sorting. Just engaging with, the different activities of daily living in whatever way that they can will ultimately help you and also give them a sense of purpose as well. When you're thinking about outdoors, just a few things, checking the exit, you might need to widen doorways or add ramps if they're having trouble with the stairs. We already talked about checking the locks, keeping steps safe. So you can mark the edge of steps with some bright tape, again, to kind of show that contrast as they can perceive that a little bit better. Obviously, steps should be sturdy, textured to prevent falls, and always have a nice handrail that they can grab onto. Avoiding clutter outside, and obviously on the stairs as well, hoses, foliage, different, leaves, things on the sidewalk that could be potential fall risks. And then obviously you want to safely store different fuel sources so that they're not able to, get a hold of like the gasoline for the grill or whatever if it's not being used. So, we can set up our environment as best we can, but I think the caregiver is also, part of the environment. So as a caregiver, what are some things that you can do to help, aging in place, in-home care be as successful as possible? So it's not just setting up the environment, is how do we utilize that to the best of our abilities? So first of all, routine is helpful. Sticking to a routine as much as possible each day will just help to minimize confusion and provide your family member with the most sense of security. Using a calendar, we talked about maybe having one on the refrigerator or somewhere that's easily seen. If they spend a lot of time in the living room, you could have one in there as well to help your family member keep track of each day and more independently. Just having it there can eliminate a lot of questions about what's happening from moment to moment. I've had family members that have come to work with me who we printed a pocket-sized calendar so that they could carry it with them. And then it, really reduced the sense of confusion and then gave that person a feeling of being more in control. Minimizing distractions. We've already talked about, kind of reducing the extraneous noises and sounds that can be a little bit jarring for a person with dementia. Simplifying the environment is going to make it a lot easier for your family member to focus and to cope. So too many distractions, too many noises, it's going to cause confusion, anxiety. So if you're having a conversation, turn the TV off, turn the radio off. If you're going to go out to eat, don't go at a busy time and try to choose maybe a quieter restaurant that's not going to have a lot of background noise. Being aware of your family member is the next one. So thinking about energy level, alertness, especially when we're thinking about how to incorporate them into the different activities. Maybe they're not a morning person, so you're probably not going to want to have them, come and help you make breakfast because they are going to want to sleep. So, be flexible, think about kind of how they were before they got the diagnosis, and think about timing for different tasks. So again, if maybe they have the sundowning You're going to want to kind of have dinner a little bit earlier, wrap everything up so they can get into bed early and prevent some of those negative, anxiety kind of behaviors from coming out. Using simple steps. So if you are incorporating them into different activities, think about giving short, concrete steps, lots of repetition. Be encouraging. You can say things like, we're a great team, or, we're going to do this together. So I think that, again, giving them a sense of purpose, thanking them for helping you with different things can be really helpful. Always, always, always allow extra time. So not only with, different activities, but even just in conversation. I think of, getting out the door to go to a doctor's appointment. So even just starting the process 15 minutes before you may have previously can be tremendously helpful. People with dementia can be easily distracted. Rushing and being impatient with them is only going to make things worse. So just build in extra time into your schedule, and it'll eliminate a lot of problems. And also, when you're having a conversation, give them a little bit of extra time to respond or process through the information can really help. So just a few more tips here. Pay attention to comfort. So if you think about comfort, you can avoid some of those more challenging behaviors. So is she hot? Is she cold? Is she hungry or thirsty? Is she in pain? Is the shower, scary for her? Are the bath towels too rough? Is the radio too loud? So thinking about some of those things, again, can really help. Avoid trying to reason with someone. I think, one of the main things with dementia is you lose the ability for clear thinking, reasoning, understanding. And so trying to reason will only frustrate both of you. So it's better to, change the subject or distract them. Sometimes it's better to kind of tell them what to do. So, in 5 minutes, we're going to do this. Or, do you want macaroni or meatloaf for dinner? So it's more closed. It's not as open-ended of a question. So you don't have an opportunity to, disagree with it as much. And using the person's strengths. So even if it takes a little bit of extra time, I would recommend having the person be as independent as possible, do as much for themselves as absolutely possible for as long as possible, because I think that, again, it adds meaning to their life. It prolongs their abilities. When we think about our mind, it's use it or lose it. And so if everything is done for them and they're not doing anything, dementia has the potential to progress a lot faster. So just as active as possible. My grandfather actually was still going out to the farms and checking on everything like a month before he passed away. And I think that just really helped him quite a bit. He was such a busybody for his whole life that his dementia progressed a lot slower because he was just so active and his mind was constantly thinking about different things. So just keeping that in mind. And then finally, taking a pampering approach. So when you're thinking about personal care, instead of being, task oriented, like we need to get your hair done because it looks terrible and it smells. It's, wow, your sisters are going to love your new hairdo. I think reminding of the outcome, because sometimes, those acts of self-care are not always the most enjoyable in the moment. But just, having that outcome, that, positive approach can be very, very helpful in the end. So I want to allow people to ask some questions. Again, this presentation is being recorded, so I know I went through a lot of information, but you can always kind of go back and maybe make some notes for your own use to get those ideas down. But yes, I want to allow adequate time if people have some specific questions. You can ask those now.
Okay, you guys can put those in the question and answer function, or you can put them in the chat. But Stephanie, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you had talked about having furniture and flooring that was in high contrast to each other. Are you talking about colors, or are you talking about like the grayscale too?
Both. I mean, I think that you just want to be able to distinguish where, it stops and starts. So, if you have like a bathroom, for example, and you have white tile on the floor, and you have a white toilet, and you have a white sink, and you have a white shower, it's all going to really kind of run together. So, if possible, just installing, like they had in the picture, a really bright toilet seat cover, so they could see that a little bit better, can be really helpful. I think about this also with like meals. So you think about, you might have a white plate on a white placemat, and people have trouble seeing that. And so a lot of times, they just won't eat because they don't even see the plate. So having, really high contrast colors, tones on your utensils and your, dinnerware can actually help with making meal times easier as well. I didn't even mention that, but same thing goes for that.
That makes sense. So a sea green wall with baby blue furniture is not recommended.
I mean, I don't know. I would probably say no.
Okay, do we have any questions? You were very thorough in everything that you talked about tonight.
I feel like I wanted to share as much as possible. It may have come on a little fast, but I included my email and my that first phone number there is my direct office number. So if anyone has any questions, they can also email later. And again, I normally share that the Alzheimer's Association website, alz.org, is a phenomenal resource. So they have so many great articles, for education purposes. And then they have support groups. They have a 24/7 helpline. So if anyone has, trouble, or just needs to reach out and talk to someone, they're available, like I said, 24/7. And that can be an excellent resource to have in the home as well.
Okay, perfect. Well, Stephanie, I thank you for sharing your wisdom and knowledge with us. And I will say good night to everyone.
All right. Thank you, everyone.